Appreciate you joining us once again for an episode on the More People podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Fitzmaurice, CEO at More People, joined today by James Truscott.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us, James.
Pleasure.
So your background, I want to dive into first of all to
Yep.
make everyone familiar with who you are and how you arrived in this chair.
Yeah.
Career in produce, commercial roles, sales and marketing, managing director, non-exec director these days, but a lifer in produce. Is that fair?
A lifer in food.
Oh.
So I started as a Unilever graduate, and I think luckily for me, they allocated me to a food business. I was at Birds Eye Wolves and did the graduate training there, which was excellent. And I stayed in sort of FMCG businesses for a little while, but I got into produce at the end of the 90s. So joined Nature's Way Foods at a time where it was sort of growing like mad. Great time there, down on the south coast. Was there for about 7 years, and then I went with those same guys over to the States, and we set up the produce supply chain into the Tesco project on the west coast of the States. Had at the back end of that, I was on the other side of the fence for a while, so I had 3 years as a retailer looking after the produce for the Tesco venture out there. It's called Fresh and Easy. Amazing experience. And then came back to the UK 2013, joined Branston. Great fun, brilliant business. I mean, lovely business, really amazing people. And we went on a fun journey there. And then more recently, I've become, as you said, more of a non-exec, more of a portfolio career. So I now lucky enough to do 4 different things in different parts of the food supply chain, all really interesting and all very prescient, I think, to what's in front of us as an industry today.
One topic that we've talked about at some of our non-exec dinners, exec dinners, which is a common theme, is around the challenges that the produce industry or the food industry faces in the UK, some of the headwinds that we are facing into, and perhaps where some of the opportunity comes from.
Yeah.
In those headwinds or with that adversity. How do you see things at the moment?
Well, I think the headwinds are extraordinary at the moment, but you know, we tend in this industry, certainly if you've come from the sales side like I have, you tend to be reasonably optimistic about what's in front of you. And I do genuinely think that the challenges we're facing represent the really big opportunities for the industry. But I mean, headwinds are significant, whether it's you know, the physical risk around the growing of food nowadays is so much tougher with the variability of the weather. You know, we contribute so much to the carbon dioxide that is created in the UK. We've got to find a way of addressing that and our other sort of wider impacts on the environment. And then the more obvious sort of macroeconomic stuff, you know, inflationary impacts, lack of labour, lack of skills, you know, really significant challenges to overcome. But actually, if you look at the businesses that have done well in our industry over time, I think they're all the ones who, whatever they were facing at the time, they fronted up and said, okay, well, this is coming at everyone. So how do we navigate it better than everyone else? And if you can find a really smart solution to an often quite difficult, thorny supply chain issue, then you typically come out in a better spot.
It feels like we've had our fair share of black swan events, or if not unique black swans, certainly ongoing challenges.
Yeah.
The most recent being a Trump tariff type scenario.
Yep.
What's always struck me in the food industry is the manner with which companies and individuals approach it. They're a resilient bunch.
Yeah.
And what is it about that industry that creates that resilience?
I don't know, but it is extraordinary, the level of resilience at all levels. You know, in the good businesses, you just see it. They exude that resilience throughout. You know, we've known enough of these sort of great operators around the industry over time that, you know, you draw lots of energy from people like that, and it's great fun. It's you know, I remember an old boss of mine who had been both in sort of long shelf life food and gone into sort of short shelf life. He went into the chicken industry, and he said, look, if you're going to go into produce, beware, this comes with a health warning. This is tough. You know, this is an industry that won't allow you to just sit and plan and strategize happily for days on end. You'll be dragged into big thorny issues that need solving right now, and then you can go and think about some strategy after lunch. And so that it means it's not for everyone. I love it. I think it's the people that are involved in the business, in the industry, are amazing to be around. The challenges that the industry throws at you make it just a much more interesting place to be. And we've got customers who are broadly hugely passionate about our product. Now, I could have been unlucky at Unilever. I could have been given soap powder to go and work with, and that would have been tough for me. You'd have found a way to get excited about it, but it wouldn't have come naturally. And you don't have customers who enthuse about it the way they enthuse about our products. That's quite a privilege.
Does the passion or the pragmatism, the stoicism, do they join the sector because they have those traits, or do they learn those traits once they join the sector?
I suspect you come with the skill of resilience, or the trait, a bit more than building it. I mean, you'll see it from others around you and pick it up a bit. But I think if you are, certainly when I remember when Nature's Way Foods, we were focusing a lot at the time on recruitment and retention, and understanding our business was how we started that conversation. How really understanding what made great employees at our business, and then distilling that down, if you like, some key traits that we were looking for in people. And resilience was a key part of that. No big surprise, but you learnt other things that you made sure you brought in with people. But critically, you show them the business beforehand, particularly guys working in operations.
Yeah.
We're often in quite challenging environments, whether it's cold, noisy, wet factories, or whether it's cold, noisy, wet fields. These are challenging places to work, and you don't want that to be a surprise for people when they walk in the door. I remember having this conversation with a director that joined us at a business from outside of produce. She actually joined from a tool manufacturer, and so we thought she was great, and we said, look, but please be aware it's not like what you're used to. She says, no, absolutely, I get it. And she joined the business, and 3 months in, I remember the conversation where she went, well, I know you told me, but yeah, this is something else. This is a hell of a challenge to stretch myself down into the micro, into the weeds if I need to then come back up and do what you need me to do as a director. She ended up being brilliant, but it was quite a transition for her.
Another challenge and part of your day-to-day role these days is dealing with that sustainability environmental piece in various different ways and shapes. It's very current. It's on the agenda for so many people for good reason, given where we are in terms of climate and the planet. What are you doing day-to-day around that side of things?
Well, I think directly and indirectly, it's fundamental to all of the businesses that I deal with. So I do 4 things now. I chair a vegetable business called ESG Drysdale in Scotland, that is a vertically integrated, sort of newly merged business in the brassica sector. I've remained as a non-exec director of Beehive Innovations, which is an agri-tech innovation business that we set up at Branston that now provides R&D services to the wider fresh food industry, and we have a couple of spin-out businesses from there. I work on a business called Extraordinary Berry Company, which has developed new growing technology for strawberries. So that allows us to grow a British strawberry that tastes like the middle of summer, but grows in the middle of winter, and that in turn has extraordinary environmental credentials. And so sort of we think has cracked that particular code. And finally, I'm a trustee of a business called, or a charity called the Bread and Butter Thing. They're a food club, so they operate in that sort of sector just above food bank. Like food banks, they're redirecting food that would otherwise go to waste, and therefore critical part of a sustainable supply chain. They're offering it to people at a heavy discount, so you will get 3 bags of nutritious food every week for a highly discounted price. Take some of the perceived issues about going to a food bank away for people who don't fancy that. But for £8.50, you get 40 quid's worth of food every week, and that's a brilliant charity. But in helping the wider industry eliminate food waste, then clearly they're doing their part as well. So all four of those businesses touch, I would say, sustainability quite fundamentally in what they do. The brassica supply chain, I think, is one of the most challenging that I've seen, in that supply and demand are always going in the opposite direction. If the sun's out, broccoli is growing fast, and nobody really wants to buy as much as they would do if it was cold. And so you've always got an imbalance, and therefore you have, periods of massive over and under supply. And compared to most other areas of produce, you get service levels that are pretty poor from time to time. It's a big challenge. Inherently, there is risk of massive waste. And so the opportunity for that supply chain, I think, is really exciting, because if you can deal with, particularly with customers who are open to long-term relationships where they embrace change and new ideas and new approaches, then you do get a chance to redesign a supply chain so that you find a high value home for ideally everything that comes at you. And that was sort of the journey we went on at Branston. It was a different challenge, but it was similar dynamics, and finding a way of finding a high value home for all of the crop, particularly when it's not a precision agriculture crop and you're in less control of it. That is the way to make the most efficient and the most sustainable supply chain, which is sort of what we need to do with what we're facing at the moment. If you can get the thing working from an economic perspective and an environmental perspective, then you should be in a strong place.
But there's no silver bullet, is there? It's all part of a holistic approach to the sustainability environmental piece.
I think so. I think, you get lovely moments where you have sort of big impact pieces of technology or a big idea or a big deal that unlocks something for a business. But most of the good stuff that happens in our industry is lots of people throughout a business doing lots of things better day after day after day. You get some nice big leaps every so often, but mostly it's around that sort of incremental marginal gain stuff.
Just aggregating those things.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curious to ask about your non-exec hats. How does life and your the approach to you as an individual differ as a non-exec as opposed to a main board exec?
It is different. I've really enjoyed it more than I wasn't quite sure how much I would enjoy it, but I'm delighted to say I am really enjoying it. You get tremendous variety. So our industry is pretty good at giving you a different look and feel to every day anyway. But when you're involved in 4 different things at the same time, then you obviously just get that huge variety. You get to get involved in really interesting, sort of strategically interesting, mind-bending sort of challenges on a regular basis, but you are not in the weeds. It is explicitly not your job to go and solve things. You're there to help support and guide and be a sounding board, and that is different. And you get your rewards, I think, in different places. I suppose I'm fortunate in the way that it's set. I've got certain roles that are a bit more sleeves rolled up, and so I probably scratch that itch there a little bit. And I'm sure I'm not perfect at being quite as hands off as I ought to be in some of the other roles. But I'm learning that every day, and I think understanding the role of a non-exec, it is different, and it does mean that if you enjoy problem solving, as most of us probably do in our industry, you've got to get your head around the fact it's not your job to solve the problem. You've got to help the rest of the team be as good as they can be at solving those problems. But great fun. Different, but great fun.
A fun new chapter.
Yeah.
Hey, look, testament to the quality of the guest. I think we could probably talk all day, but it's been a pleasure having you on, James.
Thank you.